The ticking clock on the wall was louder than usual. It was nearly 5:45 p.m., the kind of hour where most clinics began slowing down, but not Ridgeway Medical Center. The waiting room was still half full. The receptionist tapped calmly on her keyboard, a soft instrumental playlist looping through the speakers overhead, and then the glass door swung open. She walked in, confident, sharp-heeled steps echoing on the tile floor. White coat, designer bag, oversized sunglasses, even though it was already dusk outside. Her name was Karen Worthington, mid-50s. Sharp jawline, even sharper tone. She approached the front desk without a greeting. Appointment for Worthington, 6 o'clock, and I don't like to wait. The receptionist glanced up politely, smiled. Of course, Ms. Worthington. Let me pull up your file. Karen gave a quick, thin-lipped smile, the kind that wasn't really a smile at all. The receptionist nodded as she confirmed the record. You'll be seeing Dr. Amara Ellis this evening. And just like that, Karen's entire face changed. I'm sorry. Who? The receptionist blinked. Dr. Amara Ellis, she's one of our senior internists. Karen leaned in slightly. That doesn't sound like an American name. The receptionist, clearly trained in handling difficult patients, replied calmly. She's board certified, Harvard trained, one of our best. Karen's voice dropped, but her words cut sharp. Is she black? A pause. The receptionist didn't answer immediately, but her eyes said enough. Yes, she said. Dr. Ellis is black. Karen scoffed, openly, shamelessly. Then no, I'm not being treated. By her. The room grew quieter. A mother with her child looked up from across the aisle. An elderly man shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But Karen didn't care. Find me another doctor, she snapped. One I can feel comfortable with. The receptionist maintained her professionalism, even as her stomach turned. I'm very sorry, ma'am, she said softly, but Dr. Ellis is the only physician available at this hour. All others are booked or off duty. Karen crossed her arms. Well then, I guess I'll wait. Maybe someone better will free up. The receptionist nodded once, then gestured politely to the open seats. Please take a seat. We'll let you know when you're called. Karen turned on her heel and walked toward the back row of chairs, choosing the one furthest from everyone else. She sat with the poise of someone who believed the room owed her something. Her eyes scanned the space. She didn't like what she saw. Too many immigrants, she thought. Too many people who didn't look like they belonged in her kind of clinic. Her gaze landed on a young black father with his son on his lap, and she immediately pulled out a hand sanitizer bottle and began applying it exaggeratedly. Quiet tension grew, but no one said anything because people like her were loud, and sometimes silence felt safer. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Karen kept checking her phone, sighing louder with each minute. Finally, a nurse stepped into the waiting room, clipboard in hand. Ms. Worthington? Karen stood immediately, adjusting her bag. The nurse smiled and held the door open. Dr. Ellis is ready for you. That's when Karen froze. I told the front desk. I'm not seeing her. The nurse blinked. I'm sorry. Is there a problem? Karen lowered her voice, but only slightly. I don't want some affirmative action hire playing doctor with me. I want a real physician. The room stiffened. The young black father tightened his grip on his son's shoulder. The elderly man who'd said nothing earlier now frowned. The nurse, stunned, replied quietly, Dr. Ellis is a board-certified internist with 10 years of experience. Karen shook her head. I don't care. I'll wait. From behind the half-open door, Dr. Amara Ellis had just walked. Passed chart in hand. She heard every word, but she didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't respond. She simply breathed and then turned into the next exam room. Because this wasn't the first time and it wouldn't be the last. But the next time they would meet, it wouldn't be in that waiting room. It would be in a moment neither of them could predict, a moment that would change everything. Dr. Amara Ellis moved through the sterile hallways like quiet electricity, calm, focused, and unwavering. To the patients who knew her, she was a miracle worker. To her colleagues, she was a rising star, and to the ones who didn't know her, yet, she was invisible, but not because she lacked presence, because people often chose not to see women like her. She paused at the hand sanitizing station, pressed once, rubbed gently. Her fingers trembled ever so slightly, not from fear, but from restraint, because just minutes ago she had heard everything. I don't want her touching me. Find someone real. Affirmative action. Amara had heard it all before, at med school, at residency, even in her first year as attending, but today it still stung, because no matter how many degrees hung on her wall, how many lives she saved, how many nights she worked without sleep, some people only saw her skin. She took a deep breath and stepped into the next exam room. A young, Hispanic mother was waiting with her daughter. Buenas tardes, doctora. The mother smiled nervously. Amara smiled back, wide, genuine. Good afternoon, senora. I hear we've got a brave little warrior in here today. The girl giggled. Her mother relaxed. That's who Amara was, not a title, not a race, but a healer. But behind the white coat, there was a journey most never knew. Amara grew up in East Baltimore, where sirens were more common than lullabies. Her mother worked 2 cleaning jobs. Her father, gone before her 6th birthday. She wasn't born into medicine. She was born into proving people wrong. In high school, when she aced her science exams, a teacher said, "Wow, you're really smart for your background." In college, when she declared pre-med, another student asked, "Are you sure that's realistic?" At Harvard Medical, professors mispronounced her name, and some students assumed she was part of the diversity quota. But Amara never lashed out, never fought back with words. She fought with excellence. She studied until sunrise, volunteered in free clinics, graduated top 5% of her class, and when patients cried in her arms, she didn't think about their biases. She thought about their hearts, their lungs, their families. "I'm not here to be liked," she once told her mentor. "I'm here to keep them breathing." Still, the world didn't always care about credentials. There were the stares at conferences, the second glances at her ID badge, the whispers that she didn't look like a doctor. Once, at a hospital gala, someone handed her a dirty plate. Assuming she was waitstaff, she handed it back and with a calm smile and said, "I'd love to help, but I'm on call tonight for heart emergencies." But for all the insults, Amara had one quiet weapon: grace. Not the grace of weakness, the grace of knowing exactly who she was and never needing to shout it. Back in the clinic, Amara walked to the staff lounge. She poured herself a glass of water. A young nurse, Jenna, looked up. "Dr. Ellis, you okay?" Amara paused, considered. Then she nodded. "I'm fine." But Jenna wasn't convinced. I heard what that woman said. Karen, it was disgusting." Amara set the glass down. Her eyes were steady. "It's not the first time. I know, but how do you keep your cool like that?" Amara gave a soft smile. "Because if I don't, they win twice. Once by judging me, and again by pulling me down to where they are." Jenna nodded slowly, inspired. Then Amara turned to go. "Besides," she added, "it's not about me. It's about the person I might still have to save, even if they hate me." The nurse froze, and in that moment, something shifted inside her, because Amara wasn't just a doctor. She was a force, a quiet, relentless, brilliant force. And though Karen Worthington didn't know it yet, she was about to owe her life to the very woman she refused to see. The exam room was bright. Neutral-colored walls, a few generic paintings, clean counters, stethoscope on the table. But the moment Karen Worthington stepped inside, the temperature felt colder somehow. She looked around, already displeased. She didn't sit, didn't take her coat off. Instead, she stood stiffly beside the chair like it was beneath her. Then the door opened, and Dr. Amara Ellis walked in. White coat pressed, clipboard in hand, posture calm. "Good evening, Ms. Worthington." "I'm Dr. Ellis," she smiled gently. "But Karen?" She didn't return it. She looked Amara up and down, deliberately, from her curls to her shoes. Then she crossed her arms. "I asked for someone else." A pause. Amara didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She simply closed the door behind her. Then walked to the side of the exam table and placed the clipboard down. "Yes," she said. "The front desk informed me. Unfortunately, I'm the only attending physician on duty tonight." Karen let out a sharp breath. "Then maybe I'll come back another day." Amara looked at her file briefly, then looked back up. Voice. "Steady. Ms. Worthington, you came in for chest tightness, dizziness, and shortness of breath. That's not something I recommend waiting on." Karen rolled her eyes. "I'll be fine. Besides, I'm sure you're very enthusiastic, but I prefer doctors with experience." Amara tilted her head slightly. "I completed my residency at Johns Hopkins and trained in internal medicine at Harvard. I've been practicing for over a decade. But if you're not comfortable, that's your right." The tone wasn't defensive. It wasn't proud. It was just truth. Karen paused, not because she believed her, but because she didn't expect the calm. She expected pushback, maybe even begging. But Amara just stood there, perfectly composed. "Is there anyone else?" Karen asked, scanning the hallway through the open door. Amara gave a soft exhale and walked over to the sink. She washed her hands, slowly, methodically. The room was silent except for the sound of running water. Then she turned back. "Ms. Worthington, I'm not here to argue, but I will tell you this. Based on your symptoms, there is a non-zero chance you're experiencing signs of an early cardiac event. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it because it's my job to care, even if you don't want me to." Karen blinked, just for a moment, then stiffened again. "I said I'm not comfortable." Amara nodded once, then walked to the door, hand on the knob. Before leaving, she said quietly, "Sometimes the person you don't want turns out to be the one you need most." And with that, she stepped into the hallway and closed the door. Back in the hallway, Amara leaned against the wall for just a second, not because she was tired, but because she needed to breathe, not from exhaustion, from restraint. Inside the room, Karen sat down. Finally, she checked her phone, scrolled, pretended not to feel the weight behind what just happened. But something shifted. She didn't leave the clinic. She stayed. Because somewhere, deep down, she knew something was wrong. She just didn't want her to be right. 10 minutes passed. The nurse came in with water and a reminder. "Please let us know if your symptoms worsen." Karen gave a short nod, still scrolling. But her fingers trembled, ever so slightly. Her breathing a little shallower than before, her chest tighter now. But she said nothing, because to admit it would mean admitting her. Back at the nurse's station, Amara updated another patient chart. A different nurse whispered, "I don't know how you do it." Amara didn't look up. She just said, "Some people refuse help. Others collapse into..." She didn't mean it literally, but fate it was already writing the next chapter. Back in the break room, the fluorescent lights hummed softly. Dr. Amara Ellis sat at the small table near the window, her hands wrapped around a lukewarm mug of tea. She wasn't drinking it. She was holding it like a memory. Outside, the sun had dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across the clinic parking lot. And inside her chest, a quiet heaviness. The face was different, but the words were the same. Amara could still hear them. Not just from today, but from 10 years ago, from 20. "You people aren't usually doctors. You're too young to be that smart. I want someone I can understand. You're not like the doctors I'm used to." The first time she heard it, she was only 12, at the public library, helping an elderly man figure out how to search for books. He smiled at her, then asked, "You're a sweet girl. Is your mother the janitor here?" She told him no, she's a nurse. He blinked. "Really? Good for her. Most don't make it that far." She didn't understand the insult. Not then, but she remembered how it made her stomach twist. At 15, she got her first science award, top of her class. Her project, the circulatory system under stress. Her teacher, Mr. McKinley, smiled as he handed her the ribbon. "I'm sure your parents are so proud. Did they help you with this?" They didn't. They were working 2 jobs each. She built the project from scratch using YouTube and late-night textbooks from a free clinic's waiting room. But she just smiled, like always. At 17, her SAT scores came back, in the 99th percentile. Her counselor blinked twice, asked her to take it again. "Are you sure these results are yours?" Amara laughed when she got home. But she didn't cry. Not yet. She just studied harder. By med school, she was already immune to the glances, to the underestimations, to the casual surprise when she entered a room with doctor on her coat. Once, during rounds, a patient refused to let her draw blood, asked for someone who knew what they were doing. She stepped aside, let a white classmate go in. He missed the vein, twice. She never said, "I told you so." She just walked in quietly, and did it right. Back in the present, a soft knock tapped at the door. It was Jenna, the nurse. "Hey, sorry to bother, just checking in." Amara looked up, smiled gently. "I'm okay," Jenna hesitated, then sat down across from her. "Do you ever just get tired?" Amara tilted her head. "Of what?" "Of having to be the bigger person." Amara chuckled. "But there was no joy in it. I used to. But then I realized, they're not carrying it. I am. If I drop it, who's left to keep it going?" Jenna looked down, nodded. "I guess I just hate watching it happen. The way they speak to you, like you don't deserve to be here." Amara stirred the tea slowly. "They speak from fear. Fear that the world they were promised isn't the world that's rising. Fear that we're not just walking into their spaces. We're building our own." She looked out the window. The light was fading. "I don't fight them with fists. I fight them by staying, by showing up, again and again and again." Silence. Then Jenna whispered, "You think she'll come back in?" Amara nodded. "They always do. The body doesn't care about prejudice, but pain humbles everyone." Outside the break room, the intercom buzzed faintly. "Code Blue, North Parking Lot. Repeat, Code Blue, North Parking Lot." Jenna jumped up. "That's outside." But Amara was already on her feet, white coat flowing behind her. She didn't need to ask who it was. She knew, because the human heart can hide many things, but when it's breaking, it tells the truth. It started as a flutter in her chest, just a flicker. A strange, tight pressure, like someone had placed a heavy stone right behind her breastbone. Karen Worthington shifted in her chair, pretending to adjust her scarf. She didn't want to admit. She felt it. Didn't want to acknowledge that. Maybe, just maybe, Dr. Ellis was right, but denial doesn't stop a heart from failing. The waiting room was quiet now. Evening light filtered in through the tinted windows, casting long amber streaks. Across the floor, Karen took a slow breath. Then another. Her fingers clenched the armrests tighter. Something's off. Her vision blurred, just for a moment. Then the nausea hit, and when she stood up to steady herself, her knees buckled. She crashed to the floor. Hard. The room gasped. Chairs scraped. A cup fell and spilled. A nurse nearby shrieked, "Code Blue, parking lot side." Panic surged. 2 patients rushed to her side. Someone shouted, "Call an ambulance," but they didn't need one, because Amara Ellis was already running, white coat flying behind her, hair tied back tight, stethoscope bouncing on her chest with every step. She didn't ask what happened. She saw it. The curled fingers, the gritted teeth, the shallow gasps. Karen's face was flushed red, veins bulging slightly at her temple. Classic signs: chest pressure, vagal collapse, oxygen dropping. Amara dropped to her knees beside her. "Karen, can you hear me?" Karen's eyes fluttered open. "Just barely." You... Her voice was weak, slurred. "Stay with me," Amara commanded. "You're going to be okay." The receptionist ran over, wide-eyed. Do you want us to call a male doctor? Or, no. Amara's voice cut through the panic like steel. I am the doctor. She called out instructions like a battlefield surgeon. Get the AED ready, but don't use it unless I say. Oxygen mask stat. We need nitro. Sublingual now. Karen's body trembled as Amara slid the pill beneath her tongue. Her breathing grew shallower, then stopped. Pulse is faint, someone shouted. Amara looked down at the woman who had refused her, humiliated her, hated her. And what did she do? She began chest compressions. Rhythmic, steady, strong. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, she whispered. You don't get to give up now. A crowd had gathered, staff, patients, strangers. Some held phones, others just held their breath. And every single one of them was watching the same thing, a black doctor saving the life of a woman who wouldn't let her in the room. The AED was ready. Amara checked the vitals. Still no pulse. Charging. Clear. BZZT. Karen's body jerked slightly, then slumped. Amara didn't stop. Again. 30 compressions. Keep the airway open. Stay with me, Karen. You're not going out like this. And then, the faintest flutter. The monitor blinked. A pulse. Weak, but present. We've got her, Amara whispered. We've got her back. Paramedics arrived seconds later, but Amara had already stabilized her. They loaded Karen into the ambulance, and just before the doors closed, her eyes flickered open. She looked up, blurred vision, oxygen mask, tears on her face, and there, above her, the same brown eyes she refused to trust. You saved me? Amara didn't smile, didn't say, I told you so. She just leaned in. That's what I do. And then the doors closed. The crowd slowly dispersed. But no one spoke, because they had all witnessed something bigger than medicine. They had seen grace in its purest form. Back inside, Jenna followed Amara down the hallway. Why'd you run out? They're so fast? She asked. Amara paused at the sink, washing her hands. Blood under her nails, sweat on her brow. But her voice, still calm, because her heart didn't care who I was. It just needed help. The hallway was quiet now. The chaos had settled. The murmurs had faded, but the question still hung in the air. Behind every polite smile, every stolen glance from the nurse's station, every lowered voice in the break room, there was the same unspoken thought. Why did she do it? Why would Dr. Amara Ellis run to save the life of a woman who had so clearly, so cruelly, rejected her? Jenna stood at the door to the supply room, arms crossed, eyes heavy. Amara was inside, replacing her coat, now wrinkled, damp with sweat and stained at the cuffs. She peeled off her gloves. Tossed them into the bin. Jenna finally spoke. You didn't have to do that. Amara didn't turn. She carefully placed her stethoscope on the hook, folded her soiled coat, and reached for a fresh one. I know, but you did it anyway. Yes. After what she said, the way she looked at you? Amara paused, then turned slowly. Her eyes were clear but distant, like they were still somewhere between the sidewalk and the ambulance doors. You think it was easy? She asked. Jenna didn't answer, because she knew the answer. Amara sat down, her shoulders finally dropping, the fatigue catching up. Not just from tonight, but from years. I heard every word she said, Amara continued. I heard the disgust in her voice, the way she refused to even say my name. And when I saw her lying there, she paused. A part of me froze. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because, for a split second, I wondered if I wanted to. Jenna looked at her, eyes wide, not in judgment, in humanity. Amara's voice softened. That thought scared me more than anything, because the moment I let someone else's hate shape my action, I stopped being who I am. She looked down at her hands. These hands saved a woman tonight, but they also had to carry years of being unseen, unheard, unwelcomed. And still, they did the work. Jenna sat beside her. But it's not fair. Amara nodded slowly. It's not, a long pause. And yet, justice isn't always about making things even. Sometimes it's about not letting the ugly win. Sometimes, justice is just choosing grace when the world expects revenge. Down the hallway, a group of young interns were still whispering. One of them, Raj, stepped forward and knocked. Gently. "Dr. Ellis," she looked up. "Yes?" He stepped in. Nervous. I just wanted to say, what you did tonight, it was more than medicine. It was powerful." Amara offered a small smile. "Thank you." He hesitated, then added, "We're watching you, we're learning, from how you treat patients and how you carry yourself." And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving Amara sitting there in silence, not alone, but surrounded by new eyes, eyes that no longer looked down, but looked up. Later that night, she stepped outside into the cool air. The ambulance was gone. The crowd had dispersed, but her thoughts stayed heavy. Lena, a nurse she'd worked with for years, approached quietly. She handed Amara a cup of water. "You did the right thing," Lena said. "You always do." Amara took a sip, then looked up at the stars. "Doing the right thing shouldn't hurt this much," Lena nodded. "But if it didn't hurt, it wouldn't be rare." They stood there for ice a moment, two women, two professionals, two humans, breathing in a night that had changed something in all of them. Inside her car, Amara sat for a while before starting the engine. She looked at herself in the mirror. Worn, tired, strong. "You're still you," she whispered. "Even when they try to make you forget." She pulled the car into gear and drove home. Not victorious, but unchanged by hate and undefeated by it. The hospital lights were too bright. Karen squinted, her vision blurry. Shapes floating, sounds muffled. Her mouth was dry. Her chest sore. And her first conscious thought wasn't, "Where am I?" It was, "Why am I still here?" Machines beeped. Steadily beside her, a heart monitor. An IV drip oxygen tubes rested along her cheeks. The last thing she remembered was dizziness, pain, then nothing, nothing except one face, a woman's face, brown skin, calm eyes, voice steady like an anchor in a storm. No, not her. A nurse entered the room, a young black woman with braids and kind eyes. She smiled gently. "Good morning, Ms. Worthington." Karen croaked. "What happened?" The nurse checked the monitor. "You suffered a near-fatal cardiac event, but you're lucky. You were treated immediately by one of the best doctors I know." Karen blinked slowly. "Was it?" The nurse raised an eyebrow. "Dr. Amara Ellis, yes. She saved your life." Silence, a thick, heavy silence. Karen turned her head away. She didn't speak again for hours. By the afternoon, she was stable enough for visitors, but she didn't expect one. So when the door opened quietly and Amara stepped in, Karen's breath caught, the woman she had refused, dismissed, insulted, now stood at her bedside, graceful, unshaken. Wearing a white coat and quiet power, Amara didn't come closer. She stood a respectful distance away, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Worthington," she said, voice neutral. "I wanted to check on your condition myself." Karen swallowed hard. She looked, at Amara really looked, and for the first time saw more than skin. She saw control, strength, depth, and something she couldn't name. "You helped me?" Karen asked, voice barely a whisper. Amara met her eyes without flinching. "I treated you. You had no pulse for 32 seconds. I performed CPR, administered meds, monitored your rhythm, and stabilized your vitals before EMS arrived." A pause. "You were dead, Ms. Worthington, but now you're not." Karen's lips parted slightly. Her throat clenched. "Why?" Amara tilted her head. "Why what? Why did you help me? After what I said? What I did?" Amara walked closer, not aggressive, not angry, just steady. "Because you're a patient. And because saving lives isn't something I do based on preference. It's something I do because it's right." Karen turned her face away again, this time not in arrogance but in shame. "I didn't know who you were," she murmured. Amara didn't respond right away. She walked to the window, pulled the blinds just slightly, letting soft light fill the room, then turned back. "You didn't want to know. That's the difference." Silence again. But not the cold kind, the necessary kind, the kind that lets a person sit with their choices. Karen's voice cracked. "I was wrong." Amara nodded. "Yes, you were." Karen's eyes welled. I don't know what to say." Amara placed the clipboard down. Her tone softened. "Then maybe, just listen. You're not the first to look past me, or through me. You're not even the worst. But I hope you're one of the few who chooses to grow." Karen blinked hard. Her voice shook. "I never thought I'd owe my life to—" She trailed off. Ashamed, Amara raised an eyebrow. "To someone like me?" Karen closed her eyes, nodded. "I don't deserve your kindness." Amara took a breath. "Maybe not. But kindness doesn't always wait for people to deserve it. Sometimes it just shows up anyway." She stepped back, picked up her clipboard, and turned to leave. "Rest, Ms. Worthington. The heart takes time to recover." Karen spoke just before the door closed. "Dr. Ellis." Amara paused. "Yes?" "Thank you." Amara nodded once. "You're welcome." Then she walked out, leaving behind a woman who, for the first time in years, wasn't in control, and maybe for the first time in her life, truly understood what grace looked like. A week had passed. Ridgeway Medical Center was quiet that morning, rain tapping gently on the windows, casting soft shadows on the lobby floor. Dr. Amara Ellis sat at her desk, scrolling through patient files, sipping her usual lukewarm tea. Same routine, same white coat, same calm strength. But something felt different, not in the air, in her. Because when you save someone's life, someone who didn't think you were worth looking in the eye, it doesn't leave you unchanged. It leaves a mark, sometimes subtle, sometimes deep, but always real. At 10:07 a.m., the front desk buzzed her room. "Dr. Ellis, you have a walk-in, no appointment, but she says she'll wait." Amara raised an eyebrow. "Name? Karen Worthington." There was a pause, long enough for the receptionist to add cautiously, "Should I tell her you're unavailable?" Amara looked out the window. The rain had stopped. "No," she said. "Let her wait." 40 minutes passed. Amara finished a consultation, reviewed 2 charts, answered a resident's question about cardio markers. Then she stepped into the hallway. Karen was sitting in the far corner of the waiting area, not standing, not pacing, just sitting. Quietly. In her lap, a simple bouquet of white lilies, and a small envelope. When Amara approached, Karen stood slowly, not with pride, but with intention. "Dr. Ellis," she said softly. "Thank you for seeing me." Amara didn't smile, didn't nod. She simply waited. Karen held out the bouquet. "These are for you." Amara looked at them, then looked at Karen. "Why are you here?" Karen took a breath. Her voice quivered, but she didn't look away. "Because I've been thinking about that day, and about you, and about the kind of person I've allowed myself to become." Amara said nothing. Karen continued. "I judged you. Before you even opened your mouth, I looked at your skin, your name, your posture, and I decided you weren't enough. And then you saved me. Without hesitation. Without revenge. Without even reminding me who I was." Her hand trembled as she held out the envelope. "This is for you." Amara took it, opened it slowly. Inside, a handwritten letter, neat cursive penmanship. She read in silence. "Dear Dr. Ellis, there are moments in life that break us open, that strip away everything we pretend to be, that force us to look at ourselves, not through mirrors, but through the eyes of those we've wounded. That day when you saved me and was mine, you didn't owe me anything. And I gave you every reason to walk away, but you didn't. And I will never forget that. I can't take back my words, but I can change what I do next. So I'm starting here, with an apology and a thank you, not just for saving my life, but for showing me how broken mine had become. Karen Worthington, Amara folded the letter. She met Karen's eyes, still no smile, but something had shifted in her expression, a softening, a quiet exhale of acceptance. I appreciate your words, she said. Karen, I nodded quickly. I mean them. I believe you. A pause. Then Amara added, the truth is, you're not the first, and sadly, you won't be the last. But what matters most is what you do now. Karen clutched her purse tightly. I've joined an equity initiative. I'm learning, listening, donating to mentorship programs. For Black youth in medicine, she looked down. Not to make it right, but to make it different. Amara finally gave the slightest nod, then stepped closer. She took the bouquet. White lilies, she said. Symbol of renewal. Karen blinked. I didn't know that. Amara held her gaze. Maybe you chose them for a reason anyway. Karen took a slow step back. You don't have to forgive me. Amara's voice dropped gently. Forgiveness isn't about you. It's about not letting you stay inside me. I don't carry your hate, Karen. I carry my peace. With that, Amara turned, walked back down the hallway, strong, steady, still, wearing white. Still walking tall, but no longer walking alone because now, even Karen Suri was following behind. Not with pride, but with change. A few months later, the auditorium lights dimmed as murmurs of anticipation swept across the room. The crowd wasn't huge, maybe 60 people, but every seat was filled. Most were students, young, bright-eyed, hopeful. Some wore white coats, freshly pressed. Others held notebooks, hands ink-stained from ambition. They had gathered for one reason, to hear Dr. Amara Ellis speak. She didn't enter with a spotlight. She didn't need to. When she stepped onto the small stage, dressed in a simple black dress, a silver pendant resting on her collarbone, the room fell silent, not because of fame, but because of presence. She scanned the room, saw a South Asian girl in the front row with trembling fingers. A black boy near the back with wide eyes and a notepad full of scribbles. A white student clutching a stethoscope like it might break under pressure. Then she began. No slides, no slogans. Just truth. Most people assume this job is about science, about diagnosis, data, procedure. But medicine is about people, and people come with layers. History, hurt, bias, beauty, fear, culture, belief, pain. She paused, and sometimes those layers get projected onto us, onto our skin, our names, our accents, our hair. There will be patients who won't trust you, not because you aren't competent, but because they've been taught that you don't belong in the room. A wave of quiet tension moved through the audience. They felt it. Some had lived it. And Amara was naming it out loud. Let me tell you about a woman I treated once. She refused to be seen by me. Didn't like the color of my skin, my name, my presence. She didn't raise her voice, but her silence spoke volumes. Amara's eyes moved across the room. She collapsed in front of this clinic. Her heart gave out. And I was the one who brought her back. Not because she deserved it, not because she apologized, but because I made a vow to treat the person, not the prejudice. A sharp inhale echoed from the audience. Someone lowered their head. Another wiped a tear from their cheek. It's not easy, Amara continued, carrying grace in a world that often asks you to carry proof instead. But if you let bitterness replace your mission, then they win. And we were never called to win with vengeance. We win with persistence. She stepped forward, her voice firm now. If you want to be healers, be ready to be overlooked. Be ready to be mistaken for the assistant, the intern, the help. But don't let that define you. Let your character speak when the room doubts your title. Let your integrity echo, even when no one claps. And when the world hands you a moment to choose between anger and action, choose action. Because someone's life might be in your hands. The audience erupted into applause, not loud but long, standing, unified, silent tears, steady claps, because it wasn't just a speech, it was a mirror. Afterward, a group of students surrounded her. One girl, barely 19, held her hand with trembling fingers. Dr. Ellis, that story, it changed everything for me. Amara. Looked her in the eye. It wasn't a story. It was a moment, and I hope it becomes yours too. Later that night, Amara sat alone on a bench outside the building. The stars had come out. Quiet, patient, eternal. Jenna, now a full-time nurse manager, joined her with 2 cups of tea. They sat in silence. Then Jenna said, "You know, I think you've taught more people by how you live than by what you say." Amara smiled softly. Words fade, but choices leave trails. She looked up at the sky, and I'd rather leave a trail of healing than a trail of hate. Somewhere in the distance, a heart monitor beeped, not Karen's. Not a patient's, just the world, quietly remembering what justice through compassion looks like and still following her lead. It was a Friday afternoon. The clinic lobby hummed with the soft rhythms of everyday life. Printers clicking, phones ringing, the distant laughter of a toddler refusing to sit still. And in the middle of it all, Dr. Amara Ellis sat in her office. Quiet, grounded, reviewing labs before her last patient. She wore her usual white coat, simple, clean, familiar. But today, her name badge had something new. Just below Dr. Amara Ellis, MD, was a small silver plate, Medical Director. No announcement, no balloons. Just a quiet change, earned, not demanded. There was a knock on her door. "Come in," Amara said without looking up. The door opened slowly, and then a voice she hadn't expected. "Hello again, Dr. Ellis." Amara glanced up. It was Karen, but different. No sunglasses, no designer purse. She wore jeans, a soft sweater, and something she hadn't carried the first time. Humility. "This isn't a medical visit," Karen said quickly. "I'm not here to talk about my heart." "I figured," Amara said. Calm, gentle. Karen stepped forward and placed a small photo on the desk. Amara looked at it. A young girl, smiling brightly, wearing a toy stethoscope around her neck. "This is my granddaughter," Karen said. "Her name is Lily. She asked me last week what a hero looks like." Karen paused, eyes glassy. "I showed her your picture." Amara's expression didn't change, but something softened in her shoulders. "I told her you saved my life, that you were strong. Not because you could save a heart, but because you chose to save one that didn't deserve it." Amara took a long breath. Not out of pride, out of release. Karen turned to leave, but before she reached the door, she said one more thing. "I hope she grows up to be like you." And then she was gone. Outside, the world kept spinning. People entered, left, laughed, cried. But in that small office, Amara sat in stillness until a knock interrupted her again. This time, it was Jenna. "Your last patient canceled. You're free to go." Amara stood up slowly, rolled her neck, grabbed her coat. "Maybe I'll take the long way home." She stepped outside. The sky was a mix of golden pink and deepening blue, one of those in-between skies, half sunset, half promise. She walked to her car, heels clicking softly on the pavement. And just before she opened the door, she looked up. Across the lot, a teenage girl in a hoodie stood holding her mother's hand. She stared at Amara, not with awe, but with recognition, like she saw something she understood, something she wanted to become. Amara smiled gently and nodded once. The girl smiled back as Mara drove home. The streets blurred into streaks of soft light. She passed a playground, a bookstore, a mural that read, "We rise by lifting others." She stopped at a red light, glanced at the rearview mirror, and for just a moment she saw herself, not as the girl who was doubted, not as the woman who was ignored, not even as the doctor who saved a life, but as someone who stood firm and stayed kind, even when the world told her not to. The light turned green. She drove on, not into a victory, but into continuance, because this story wasn't about one woman, or one mistake, or one act of grace. It was about what happens and when one person chooses to be better, and another chooses not to walk away. No credits rolled, no applause, no headlines, just a final look at a woman in a white coat who knew exactly who she was and never needed permission to prove it.